Oh, hi. There you are. Today, I'm going to be talking about a little something that's sort of been rubbing me the wrong way. There is a difference between an evaluation of a thing and a preference for the thing. What do I mean by this? So, I spend, some might say, too much time, but I spend some time on Reddit. And on Reddit, if you go to any of the D&D boards and you point out that all of the non-spellcasting classes are weak and uninteresting, and the more spells you cast, the stronger you are, and the more interesting decisions you get to make during the game, there's a tendency for the reaction to be, reaction to assume that you are a big fan of spellcasters and you hate marshals. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not accurate. There is a difference between an evaluation of something and a preference for something. I happen to really enjoy the martial fantasy. I like the armored warrior. I like, honestly, so I've got this thing where I really like spears. I like the idea of a spear. I like the aesthetic of a spear. I like the spear and shield, the sort of hoplite warrior type look. I find that really evocative. I write spears into a lot of my fiction, just because I like them so much, like more than swords. And I say this as someone who like actively practices with a sword as a hobby. I like spears. So, but in D&D, using a spear or a weapon of any kind, or being a warrior type in 5th edition is a bad choice. Like, tactically, it doesn't make much sense. You are going to have fewer options than a spellcaster. You are going to be less effective than a spellcaster. You are going to be less durable than a spellcaster. So why would you do it? And there is a separation of like what I prefer as a character fantasy and what I evaluate to be the strongest and best option. So I've, yeah, I've been accused of being a spellcaster fanboy, because I argue for stronger martial classes. How much sense does that make? So, and there's a sort of side note that I want to address, which is that, as an amateur designer, I have dabbled with developing RPGs, and what I used to do, and what I noticed that I was doing, and I have stopped doing since then, is that I will have an idea for certain character archetypes in my mind that I like, and there are some in there that I like less, and I will make the ones that I like better because I like them. That's bad design. I have been guilty of this in the past. It's bad design. Your preference for a thing should not be connected to your evaluation of it. Let me give you another example. The rogue. And this is an example that I am perceiving in the community. This is not an example for me, myself. Because I'm not super attached to the idea of the rogue character, the scoundrel type. Like, it doesn't speak to me on an aesthetic or conceptual level. So the rogue is an extremely popular class. I believe surveys have shown that the rogue is the most popular class, the most beloved, the most universally approved of class in D&D, like practically across the board. The fighter gets made more on D&D Beyond, and so though that data shows that most people play fighters, but that data is skewed by certain systemic issues. I don't believe the fighter is actually the most popular class. The rogue is the most beloved class. People love the rogue. The rogue is also arguably the weakest class in the game, like the number one single weakest, worst, least effective class in the game for a variety of reasons. And I don't want to go into all of them today, but it's like Fixing the rogue involves not only rewriting the class, but also fixing a lot of other systemic issues that are connected to what the class is supposed to be doing. So it's incredibly bad and like fully needs a rework. Like you need to rework the system to help make the rogue not a terrible class. That's how bad it is. Like it's not close. It's not a situation where like, oh, somebody has to be the worst class, and so it happens to be the rogue, which sort of implies that it's close. And like like if you buffed up the rogue, then just someone else would be the weakest, and you have the same problem. No, that's not what's going on here. The rogue is actually like really bad. 5th edition happens to be a game that is very easy, so you can get by with a rogue. You can, finish a campaign with a rogue and be fine, but it doesn't make it good. There are a lot of problems with the way that the rogue operates, but people love the rogue. People, who doesn't want to be, the Han Solo type, the roguish scoundrel, the guy who shoots first. But that, I believe, and so people love the rogue as an idea, and they have now connected their love of the idea with the mechanics of the class. And so when I bring up that, well, actually the rogue is really bad for these, and these reasons, people accuse me of hating the rogue. I don't hate the rogue. I don't. I want it to be good. And people get like personally offended by the assertion that the thing they love isn't actually that good. Because they love it so much, they evaluate it incorrectly, is what I'm saying. It's what I should have said like a minute ago. Because they love it so much, they evaluate it incorrectly. They attach their love of the concept to the mechanics. And so that means that they love the mechanics, despite the fact that the mechanics do not support the fantasy that most people have about the rogue. So that's an issue. It comes up with the rogue a lot. It comes up with the monk a little less, but also kind of a lot. The fighter less so. It comes up with the barbarian a lot. As someone who had a personal experience with a barbarian that made me completely rewrite the class and make it, I think, pretty good. I've talked about this before. It frustrates me. And this kind of touches in on another previous topic, which is the status quo bias. The fact that the way things are right now is the way that they should be. And so in trying to improve on that it's power creep, obviously. No, I'm trying to improve on the worst options in the game and make them interesting and competitive. Oh man. This is kind of a rambly topic. I know I'm not really culminating into any specific, like, monumental point. I'm just saying that this is a thing I'm experiencing a lot. The conflation of evaluation and assessment, or not evaluation, assessment. Your love of the idea and the mechanics associated with it. I do not have a favoritism towards spellcasters, but I am able to sort of independently acknowledge that spellcasters are the best classes. The more spells you're casting, the more powerful you are in 5th edition. Like, that's just the way things are. And there's myriad reasons why this is. It's not a difficult concept, but it is kind of a lot. There's a lot involved in it. It's core and fundamental to the system. There's a lot of factors that tie into this. Maybe, you know what I should do? I should make a video on why spellcasting is so busted. Because, oh man, that would be a long video. That'd be a really long video talking about all these factors. And I'd have to have like a list and write it out so that I don't forget points or skip over them. That's too much effort. I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. So evaluation of a thing as strong or weak does not have to be tied to your appreciation for it, your preference for it. I can acknowledge that paladins do not have the fantasy that I want, while still acknowledging that they have some features that are good. I specifically do not like the ranger class. I've actually never liked the ranger class in D&D. I started in 3rd edition, so I've played 3rd, I've played 4th, I've played 5th. Never liked the ranger class aesthetically. Like, I don't like the sort of hodgepodge of concepts that come together to do a thing. And like, I understand like where the ranger's coming from. They kind of want it to be like Aragorn, the ranger from Lord of the Rings. But they don't really, like, it doesn't. It has fully moved on from that. But, this sort of hybrid ranged melee, dual wielder archery, also with like woodsy kind of tendencies. Like, it's a scattered idea. I don't particularly like it. I do like the idea of like a woodsy type archer character. Like, I'm cool with that. But I don't like the ranger class. I don't like the way that they do it. And I never have. I did play a ranger once in 3rd edition. I played, they came out with alternate rules for the martial ranger. So they swapped out the spell casting. I've also never liked rangers having spells. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It just like conceptually, I don't see a reason for rangers to have spells. So when the martial ranger variant came out in 3rd edition, I tried it. I think I died pretty fast. We were going through Rapanathuk, which is not a terribly easy dungeon. So I'm pretty sure I died. I don't remember to what. My point being that I like the idea of the woodsy character. I don't like the ranger. So what I often end up doing is making characters that are rangers, but not using the ranger class. I've done this with the warlord. I've done this with, I did it with a fighter. I did it with a rogue in 5th edition. In 4th edition, I did a ranged warlord using the insightful warlord stuff. And I was like, wearing my cloak. I proficiency in like survival and nature. I was a shifter, so like hunting and tracking. But I was a warlord because, of course, I was. Of course, I was the warlord. Why would I ever play something that wasn't a warlord? It's such a good class, man. I love that class. That actually, there's an example. So the warlord and the fighter are 2 classes in 4th edition. I love the warlord conceptually, but I am able to assess the fighter as being the stronger class, the more well-designed class. Like, from a mechanical standpoint, the fighter is just the best. I've done a video on this before. It's the best class ever designed in D&D, ever, in any edition. It's just a really well-built set of mechanics. But I love the warlord, and so I will play the warlord. But I acknowledge that the fighter is a better class. And this has nothing to do with power, because I know that some people will gravitate towards whatever they see as the strongest option. And I've kind of done this. I've done it myself. I am kind of guilty of it. Kind of. And I'll explain why that's only a kind of. People see, like, a new feature come out, a new subclass, say, for 5th edition. And they say, oh, that's really strong. Oh, that's really cool. Regardless of, like, what it does to the game. People will assess. Sometimes, so what I'm getting at is sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes it's not you like the idea and therefore you assess it as being good. Sometimes you assess something as being good and therefore you like the idea. And these should still be separate. You still should be separate. And I'm not telling people how to play the game. If you like being strong, then yeah, go for the strongest option. But I think you should have not aesthetic standards, but an aesthetic preference, an aesthetic style. So what you shouldn't do is just say, like, whatever is the strongest option is the one that you prefer. I think that can lead to a lot of problems with regards to both game design and, like, what happens in a campaign. Because the strongest spells in 5th edition are problematic. They can absolutely disrupt a campaign and make things worse overall. Make the job of the DM harder. It kind of disrupts the flow of the story. Like there's a lot of really problematic spells, particularly as you start to get into like 4th level spells and higher. With the wizard that I am now playing, I've like, been choosing between spells like, I could choose this spell and it's probably the better option. I'm not going to, because I feel like the DM wouldn't like it. And that is, oh man. But I'm not here to talk about the problem with spells today. That might be my next video. What I'm getting at is that, like, there needs to be this balance and the sort of independent evaluation and preference that goes on. Preference should not influence your evaluation of a class, but your evaluation of a class should also not influence your preference. I think you should be able to have both independently at the same, in the same time. Your preference for a particular class should not also specifically not make you resistant to or hostile towards someone who suggests a revamp of that thing. Which gets into my previous video about homebrew not being not being universally terrible. Let's put it that way. People get angry when they see my revamped barbarian or rogue because they think that, because they think I'm shitting on martials in general. And I'm not. I'm saying these classes are a problem because they are too weak and too boring. They're badly designed. Here is a better design. And I think, well, that just invalidates the ones in the book. Status quo bias. Anyways, I've gone on long enough. Those are my general thoughts. I don't have like a single pointed opinion that I'm trying to defend and justify, but that's just my thoughts on the topic in general. Evaluation and preference should be separate, and some people can separate them, and some people I think just can't. I think for some people, those two parts of looking at a class or looking at a gameplay mechanic are just sort of inextricably linked, and maybe there's nothing that can be done about that. I don't know, but it is painting a lot of online discussions about D&D in ways that I think are not helpful, and that's frustrating.